Hey y'all, I'm Mayer Cunningham, the special education boss. If you've ever felt confused, overwhelmed, or just plain frustrated at the 504 IEP table, you are in the right place. Every week, I'm breaking down the rules, the rights, and the realities of special education so you can walk into meetings informed, empowered, and ready to make real change. And whether you're a parent, a teacher, an advocate, a school-based member, or somebody who's just trying to do right by a student, this podcast gives you straight talk, real answers, and tools that you can use immediately. I'm not here to play politics. I'm not here to play sides. I'm here to train people who sit at the table and teach you how to follow the law, ask the right questions, and protect the rights of students. So go ahead and hit subscribe, share this with a friend, and you know what? Meet me back here every single week. We're not just talking about change. We're making it. Because when you know better, you do better. And when we get it right for the child, we get it right for everybody.
Hey, you guys, welcome. We are so excited about training y'all tonight in this amazing webinar. Paraprofessionals, their roles, their duties, their responsibilities, and their limitations. If we haven't met, I'm Mayer Cunningham, special education boss, training everyone that sits at the 504 IEP table to navigate and negotiate successful student outcomes. And so this is by far the most requested training that we have, the most questions about this requirement. And so we want you to have the training from the federal law. Tonight, we're going to talk about statutes and regulations, No Child Left Behind, educating the Educating Student Success Act, so that you guys know exactly what your duties and obligations are under the law. And so I just kind of want to unpack what I see in IEP meetings that I serve families from the Kodiak Islands to Miami-Dade County in Florida. Since the pandemic, the other big problem that we have seen is a switch from special education teachers to paraprofessionals solely providing special education. And so I want to talk about how amazing paraprofessionals are. Paraprofessionals changed the life of my son in school, and we love them. They were never intended to be special education. They were never intended to replace education. And so I want to talk about what the law says. And I first want to say that, a lot of you are in situations, we get so many teachers reaching out to us. We love teachers. God bless teachers. We know you guys do it for the money and the celebrity, that have been put in really compromised situations by their leadership. We have people that have been hired at school districts, counties, and cities and told it's okay that you don't have the correct certification. You can teach special education, when they absolutely know that they're a paraprofessional. And so how sad that we have a school district that would hire you with whether it's HR or somebody in leadership and say, oh, you're a paraprofessional, you can meet the obligations of the special educator. So we're going to talk about what they are. What paraprofessionals are amazing, right? We love them. The support system that they provide to general and special education teachers is, immeasurable. And so we are so thankful for them. So let's first talk about the law. So we are obligated to follow the law, the federal law. And you guys, if you don't have the federal law, you can look up the federal law in CFR. So E stands for electronic, CFR, Code of Federal Regulations 34, Part B. So IDEA is broken down into 4 parts, A, B, C, and D. A talks about the names and titles and the things that we have to do under IDEA. B is for special education. C is for infants and toddlers. And then D is for professional training and personnel development. Okay, so let's talk about what it says for paraprofessionals. So if you first go to 34, subchapter B, 200.58, it talks about qualifications of paraprofessionals. So this is in the federal law. I printed this out 2 days ago, so it hasn't changed. And here's what I need to say about the federal law. The federal law is federal. So whether you're in Indiana or Idaho or Paris, Texas, the federal law applies to you. So if your leadership has said something different, you are being misinformed, okay? And so no state, city, or county could reduce the benefit of IDEA, meaning they couldn't change that, okay? So 34 subtitle B, regulations in the Office of Special Education, the Department of Education. an Office of Elementary and Secondary Education, Department of Education. So 200.58, qualifications of paraprofessionals. For the purposes of this section, the term paraprofessional means an individual who provides instructional support consistent with 200.59. So that's what paraprofessionals do. They provide instructional support. 200.59 also talks about parents' rights to know. I know a lot of you guys have teachers or people that are providing instruction to your student, and you've been told by your school district that it's confidential who the paraprofessional's name is. That is not true. So really, before we get into all of this, when I'm sitting in an IEP meeting, I assume competency. I assume that everybody that's teaching this student has met their qualifications of the job that was posted and that they are all qualified to do their position. But if you don't ask these questions in the meetings, you're not going to know, and not knowing does not serve a child with a disability at all. And so when I'm in a meeting, I will say, so Mrs. Smith, you are the biology teacher. Who is the second staff member in the class? It's really important that you say that. Who is the second staff member in the class? Because the school district hires a lot of staff, but they may not be qualified to fulfill the position that they have been put in. They may not be qualified to fulfill the position that the school has put them in. And so when we're talking about the schedule of services page, and really that's what we're talking about, right? The schedule of services page, those are those special education minutes that we agreed upon, we signed and we codified an IEP, right? And the district has an obligation to implement it with fidelity, right? Because we agreed to it. On the schedule of services page, it will at minimum list special education minutes, related service providers, and instructional service providers. There is no obligation for the district to list out every general ed setting where there's no special education. So every section that you see on that page for determination of services, special education services, schedule of services page, however your district says it, those are to be provided by a special educator. Do paras support special educators? Absolutely. So let's look what the law says about that. So qualifications of paraprofessionals, as listed under 300.156, personnel qualifications. So 300.156 under IDA will tell you about personnel qualifications. So we have general, and then B, 300.156B as in boy. It says related service personnel and paraprofessionals. Related service professionals and related service personnel and paraprofessionals. The qualifications under this paragraph in this section must include qualifications for related service personnel and paraprofessionals. Okay. And under 2I, it says allow paraprofessionals and assistants who are appropriately trained and supervised. So let's stop right there. So the problem that we have in school districts sometimes is that we have paraprofessionals who are in the classroom providing minutes that are on the special education services page, but they are not supervised. And so the conversations that I have in meetings where school districts tell me that, Karen, you and I disagree what supervised means. We don't. And so what's happening in a lot of school districts is we have a paraprofessional in the classroom who's working with the student with a disability. They're taking data on their goals. They're tracking behavior. They're reporting that data back, and they're giving instruction. And that is fine if, in fact, it's under the direct supervision of a certified teacher. The direct supervision of a certified teacher. All IEP goals are special education goals, right? So only a special educator or a related or instructional service provider could provide specially designed instruction. They have to provide the specially designed instruction. What does that mean? They have to know the student. They have to met the student. They have to been in the student's classroom. And they provide and create the specially designed instruction. What we are seeing from coast to coast is we are seeing paraprofessionals in the room with a student, and no special ed teacher has ever been in the classroom. So when I'm in a meeting, I will say, Stephanie Smith, you're the student's case manager. Yes. Okay. So on these 100 minutes for math and 100 minutes for reading and 100 minutes for science and 100 minutes for social studies, it says that you're the provider. Well, I'm the case manager. Okay. And so you need to tease out in the meeting, what does case manager mean? And this is how you tease it out. Stephanie Smith, how many minutes a week do you go into Billy's class and provide him special education for those 100 minutes. And almost always we are told none. Okay. So the case manager often is managing what? The paperwork, the mountain of paperwork. I was in a meeting today in an amazing school district, and I said to the case manager, I said, how many kids are on your caseload? And she said 35, which is not unusual. So that's 35 kids that have IEP meetings. And if I'm their advocate, we're having more than one IEP meeting, right? They're managing their paperwork. They're getting information from related and instructional service providers, from special educators and general educators. So it would be very unusual for that case manager to actually be delivering the SDI. What is SDI? It is special education. And there is no exception or exemption for delivering special education. So when we look at 300.156, so back to 34 CFR 300.156, which talks about personnel qualifications. Again, this is pulled straight from the Federal Registry. How do you get that? You type in ECFR and it comes up. That is the Federal Registry. It's live. It doesn't change. You can print out these regulations yourself. So 300.156 personnel qualifications. Paraprofessionals are appropriately trained and supervised. They're appropriately trained and supervised. It doesn't say anything about supervising paperwork. Additionally, in USC 20 USC 1412, A as in Apple 14, it talks about related service personnel and paraprofessionals. And this allows paraprofessionals and assistants who are appropriately trained and supervised. Appropriately trained and supervised. Appropriately trained and supervised. Do you hear a common thread? Supervise. And when I sit in meetings and I am told that you are supervising somebody in a room that you're not in, that is a violation of a free, appropriate public education. So paraprofessionals who provide instructional support may work under the direct supervision of a highly qualified teacher. The direct supervision. Maybe if we just put their Velcroed, maybe people would understand that better, but direct supervision. So a paraprofessional who works under the direct supervision of a teacher, because the teacher plans the lesson, they plan the instruction, and the para carries it out and evaluates the achievement of the students. You cannot plan instruction for a student that you don't educate, that you don't work with, that you don't find out about his trials and his acuity of his disability, right? We have one job in special education: to teach a child strategies to self-manage their disability. And we are obligated to write an IEP that enables them to make progress appropriate in light of their unique circumstances. And you know who determines that? Special educators and paraprofessionals support them. And so 200.59, it says that a program staffed entirely by paraprofessionals it's not FAPE. It's not allowed. Additionally, it says that paraprofessionals work in close and frequent proximity to the teachers. Close and frequent proximity to the teachers. Okay. And then let's look at what used to be, and these are all my old printouts, what used to be the No Child Left Behind, and you can still pull this up, Title I Paraprofessionals, the regulatory guidelines for paraprofessionals under the U.S. Department of Education. D, it says programmatic requirements. What are the requirements for supervision of paraprofessionals? See, it's a question. So your federal government, the U.S. Department of Education, has already answered that. What are the requirements for the supervision of paraprofessionals? This is on page 10. Paraprofessionals who provide instructional support must work under the direct supervision of a highly qualified teacher. Sections 119, G as in girl, 3 as in 3, A as in apple. A paraprofessional works under the direct supervision of a teacher. The teacher prepares the lessons, the plans, instructional support, the activities, and they evaluate the achievement of the students with whom the paraprofessional is working. The paraprofessional works close and in frequent proximity. As a result, a program staffed entirely by paraprofessionals is not allowed. A program where a paraprofessional provides instructional support and a teacher visits a site once or twice a week, but otherwise is not in the classroom, or a program where the paraprofessional works with a group of students in another location while the teacher provides instruction to the rest of the class, would also be inconsistent with the requirements that paraprofessionals work in close proximity to the teacher. This is from No Child Left Behind. Now, No Child Left Behind was updated by the great President Barack Obama, December 10th, 2015. So same section. Additionally, this is section 1013, coordination requirements for paraprofessionals. And it's just a continuation, literally a continuation of NCLB, No Child Left Behind. They just literally dropped it in there, and that is section 1119. And it says paraprofessionals. Do I feel like I'm repeating myself? I'm repeating myself. But repeating ourselves is how we learn. Paraprofessionals, general requirements. This is the educating students education. What is it? Every Student Succeeds Act. Every Student Succeeds Act, which was signed into law by Barack Obama, December 10th, 2015. General requirements for all paraprofessionals. Number one, that the education agency receiving assistance ensure that all paraprofessionals work in a program supported with funds under this part, which means that IDEA is a federal grant program, right? We give grant money to people, to school districts so they can provide education support to students with disabilities. Duties of a paraprofessional. Number one, general. Local educations receiving these funds is required to follow these programming. Number one, to provide one-on-one tutoring for eligible students if the tutoring is scheduled at a time when the student would not otherwise receive instruction from a teacher. B, assist with classroom management, such as organizing instructional and other materials. C, provide assistance in a computer laboratory. D, conduct parent involvement activities. E, provide support in library or a media center. F, act as a translator. Or G, provide instructional services to students in accordance with paragraph 3. Paragraph 3, additional limitations. A paraprofessional described in this paragraph may not provide any instructional services to a student unless the paraprofessional is working under the direct supervision of a teacher. I mean, I don't know how many ways we have to say this. So many of you have been put in situations which are a violation of federal law. And the federal law coincides with their state codes. And so there's nothing different under your state code. So for instance, in Texas, I'm from the great state of Texas, go home or go big. We don't go home, we just go big. So in the Texas Administrative Code, under 230.61, it describes the roles of paraprofessionals, and there's no delineation from the federal law. And so it's very important that you are not putting your licensure at risk, that you are not saying that you are delivering specially designed instruction when it's a paraprofessional, mainly with the student providing their special education minutes. Because why do we have those special education minutes? Because the student needs more support than solely can be provided by the general ed teacher. Today I was in a meeting, probably the same meeting you were in, and we have a general ed teacher and a para. A general ed teacher and a para. Love general ed teachers. You know what they're teaching? General ed. They're teaching the state standard. What is the para doing? And she said she's working on goals. And I said, when has a special educator gone into this classroom? And the school's been in for 4 weeks. And she said, we don't have that. And so she said the para is being supervised by the resource teacher. So I said to the resource teacher, which is a special ed setting, do you go into Mrs. Johnson's class? No. So who's supervising anybody? And she said, I checked the paraprofessionals' paperwork. The law is not about paperwork. It's about special education. And when we give students special education in a way that's appropriate, we give them rigor and we give them expectations, it changes their lives. But we have so many students that we are serving now, myself and my team, that literally have gotten 0 minutes of special education support. And so I want you to know the law. It's not my law. It is a federal law that every Student Succeeds Act. It's been written clearly and clearly and clearly, direct supervision of a special education teacher. And when you're being told something different, you need to show up with these statutes. You need to show up with the No Child Left Behind regulatory guidance from March 1st, 2004. And then the Every Student Succeed Act, which was signed into existence December 10th, 2015 by President Barack Obama, which again drops in the same thing, the duties and limitations of paraprofessionals. You can print this off yourself. It's federal statutes, regulations, and codes. And so this is not about getting somebody in trouble. This is about what's doing right for children. School districts accept state and federal funds, and they could appropriate funds to get appropriate special education staff to serve students with disabilities. And I'm not going to stop talking about this until we stop doing this, until we stop telling our staff, it's okay. They don't know what they're talking about. We do know what we're talking about because we train on the federal law and the federal regulations, which protect individuals in public schools with disabilities and their parents. And so I want you to know what is true so that you can go in and get these requirements implemented for students so that they have the gains. Why do we do special education? Because we know that when we deliver special education, it changes their life. It gives them the ability for gainful employment, independent living, and further education. And we don't get to keep robbing children while I'm here. We're going to keep talking about it, and we're going to keep equipping you so that you know what your duties, obligations, and responsibilities are, right? My mission statement is when we get it right for the child, we get it right for everybody. When we get it wrong for the child, you're handicapping them even more. And I want to leave you with one more letter. So we have an amazing office of special education programs. And so there are 13 offices under the Department of Education, and we'll probably do a different training on that one day. But one of those offices is OSEP, Office of Special Education and Rehabilitation Services. And so there's a letter that went out from OSEP October 4th, 2022. The letter went out from OSEP October 4th, 2022. Who to go out to? State education agencies. And it says it's come to their attention that districts are not fulfilling their obligations under Part B. Why does a district have an obligation under Part B? IDEA is a grant program. So every year your state, let's say the great state of Alabama, writes a letter to Congress, and they say, we're going to meet our IDEA obligations. We're going to have the right staff and the personnel to fulfill them. And then based upon that, the federal government releases money based upon the number of students that are identified in special education. Now, the problem with that is we got no oversight. And so myself and my team are continuing to go to Capitol Hill to make sure at some point going forward, we have some oversight to where all this money is going, right? Because I don't think it's getting to teachers. I don't think it's getting to special educators, and I don't think it's getting to parents and students, but that's a training for another day, okay? And so OSEP sends out guidance letters. And so the U.S. Department of Education is committed to supporting states in the provision of FAPE, including the provision of special education and related services that meet the requirement under Part B, which includes ensuring that special education teachers and related service providers are appropriately and adequately prepared and trained. This memo is intended to clarify states' obligations, not options. Their obligations under IDEA Part B, related service personnel qualifications and alternative certifications. Based on media reports and discussion with states and advocates, OSEP has become aware that states currently have policies and procedures in place that may not be consistent with IDEA requirements. OSEP also recognizes that states are facing many challenges with a limitation in special education and service providers across the United States. OSEP believes it's critical to ensure that state education agencies fully understand the IDEA requirements to the personnel, and alternative certifications are aware of available resources to support their efforts. So it goes and it talks about the qualifications and who has to be fully certified. I'm not going to read the whole letter to you, but it also goes on to talk about that we are required to deliver special education. A teacher in a public or charter school must meet the certification or licensing requirements, if any, set forth by the state public charter school. In addition, public school and special education teachers may not have a special education certification or licensure requirements waived on an emergency, temporary, or provisional basis and must hold at least a bachelor's degree. How many of you guys have sat in meetings and said, hey, Bob Smith he's not really a special education teacher, but the state of, I don't know, confusion said it was okay. You ever sat in those meetings where we were told it's okay? Or I sit in meetings and people tell me that the state gave them a pass. There is no pass. There's never been a pass in special education. December 2nd, 1975, it's almost 50 years old. There has never been a pass in the obligation to provide special education and related services. And so this letter, which I share with school districts across the nation, it says, the state education agency may not waive the special education or related service personnel requirements on an emergency, temporary, or provisional basis. Have you ever been in a meeting where it says, oh, Candy, she's working on a plan through the state to become a special educator? That is phenomenal. And the day that she becomes a special educator, you know what? I could type it into the state's database and there's her name. But she either is a certified special educator or she's not. There is no in the middle. I have a family that I served and we've been waiting 3 years for this teacher to become a certified special educator in a self-contained class with solely disabled children. It never happened. So all of those children were denied FAPE. They were denied a free, appropriate public education. And until we become a band of an amazing special education evangelist requiring school districts, counties, and cities to fully meet their obligation under IDEA, these practices will continue. And so I want to share with you this letter so that you can take it to your districts and make sure that you are meeting your obligations under IDEA. When we had the pandemic, right, which I remember Friday, October 13th, 2020, and our governor came on and said, school's closed. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm out of a job. But thanks to an Ethernet cord, I now get to serve families nationally, right? We waited all semester. We thought that Becky DeVos, the special education, the executive director of the Department of Education, would put out a letter saying, hey, all districts in America, because we're in the pandemic, we waive the obligations of IDEA. I mean, I thought that was coming. It never came. It's not coming. So there is no waiving of that. There is no, what's the other thing that I hear? We're a district of innovation. Have you guys heard that? A district of, I don't even know what that means. I mean, I know what it means, but I don't know what it means, right? If you're a district that receives federal funding from IDEA, you have to fulfill your obligations. And if you don't, we are going to continue to file state complaints, and we're going to continue to file federal complaints with the U.S. Department of Education Office of Civil Rights because you are robbing a child. And so I want you guys to know these federal requirements, which have never moved. They've never moved. And you know what I'm not doing? I'm not moving either. So we're happy to provide you these links and a copy of the OSEP letter, which of course lines it out again. But you need to know what the law says. And the law is linear. It doesn't care if your director said, it's okay. Nobody knows. It's not okay. To rob a child is not okay. And to put other teachers, their licensure in play, that's not okay. So we're going to keep talking about this until there's no need to talk about it anymore. Okay. So we want to open it up. Thanks you guys so much for being on. We're so excited to train y'all. And so that you can continue to be amazing serving kids with disabilities. So Stephanie, you might have a couple of questions that people want answered. And I know just a couple. And I know people have questions about a lot of things, but as it relates to this, we'll answer questions for about 30 minutes related to paraprofessionals. I know you guys have questions about other things. And if you want to put in the Q&A what other kind of webinars you would like, we can certainly get those scheduled. But for purposes of today, I want to be able to answer questions specifically about paraprofessionals.
Okay, perfect. The first question we have is, will these do's and don'ts pertain to all states or only certain states?
Every states, all the states. Is that good English? Every states, all the states in America. If you're a state in America that is a federally funded school, it applies to you. That's why it's a federal law. These are federal statutes. IDEA is federal. The educating, we've changed it. The No Child Left Behind, which turned into Every Student Succeeds Act. Those are federal requirements. And those they were last updated December 10th, 2015, and they've not changed.
Perfect. Can students be left alone in classroom with a paraprofessional?
Left alone. So I don't know what left alone means. Certainly if a paraprofessional is providing, behavioral support or safety support, that's I when I hear left alone, I mean, certainly teachers have to go have lunch, teachers have to have obligations, but as it refers to the instructional day, the special education minutes must be delivered by a special educator. Now, not every student has every minute of the day with a special educator, and we know that. But if they're due 100 minutes a week in math, then every day those 20 minutes must be fulfilled by a special educator.
Okay, next question. Is a paraprofessional able to provide medical treatment and services, i.e. suctioning, G-tubes, venting, etc.?
So that's a bit of a range. I think suctioning and venting only applies to nurses, but just like you guys know, I'm not a certified special anything. I know a G-tube can be trained by any appropriate staff member at a school district. That doesn't have to be by nursing, but I believe that suctioning and venting is done by nursing. And so that would be lined out in your IHP, your individualized healthcare plan, and so that we know who's going to be providing that.
Thank you. Can a special para also be regular education para? And if so, what should be a priority? IEP needs or covering regular education, lunches, and recesses?
So a paraprofessional can help any certified teacher at school. So the role of a paraprofessional is to help a certified teacher. So if you have a paraprofessional that's providing support to a general ed teacher, then that would be outlined. If you're providing special ed support, that would be outlined because you're being directed and supervised by a special educator. But you can't have 500 minutes a day and only have 375 minutes a day. So we don't take away one for the other.
Perfect. Is a paraprofessional able to collect data to support the need for a one-on-one aid?
So a paraprofessional is able to collect data that they're going to share with the general and special education teachers so that they can go back to the committee and make appropriate recommendations.
Okay. Is the paraprofessional assessment now a standard certification requirement to work as a para?
So each state's called them something different, educational aides, paraprofessionals. So your state has their standards to be a paraprofessional. They're different in every state, but they're different but commensurate. So your state education agency or your DOE, your State Department of Education agency, can give you those requirements. And listen, when you guys have a question about anything, go to your Department of Education for your state. They have the legal requirements and they have their state requirements aligned with their federal requirements.
Should paras have any training in order to help with inclusion classroom instruction?
All paras should be trained. They should have a copy of the student's IEP. They should know their duties. They should have read the present level. They should know what the IEP goal looks like. They should know what the accommodations page looks like. The accommodations, they should know what the schedule of services page, because they're part of the team delivering the instruction.
Okay, and this might be kind of the same question. What can an inclusion para do when a gen ed teacher is over relying on them for support outside of the hours required?
I would just say this is putting my licensure at risk. I am certainly happy to fulfill my obligations, but I am not I'm not a certified educator for this student. So I just want to make sure that you sit down with your supervisor and make sure that we both understand what our roles are for supporting the students.
Okay. And then I am a para for ISS. I do this alone with no teacher. Now with the new bill that passed for ISS and having students in there longer and for various reasons, how does it affect me if there is no certified teacher assigned with me at any time?
Phenomenal question. When the student is in school suspension, we are still obligated to deliver the entire IEP. So when a student has in-school suspension, we still have to deliver the entire IEP. So we have to deliver math, we have to teach reading, we have to teach writing, science, social studies. Their special ed minutes have to occur, their related service minutes have to occur, their instructional service minutes have to occur, all their supplements have to occur. So that is complete failure of the district and a denial of a free, appropriate public education.
Thank you. Louisiana is revamping SPED with the SPED playbook. Is it legal for SPED teachers to create plans for paras to do with students when they are not in the room and the minutes count?
The minutes don't, there's no secret counting. We got an email about this today, Stephanie, didn't we? About the playbook. We all email us the playbook because you know what I'll do? I'll do a whole webinar. I'll read the whole playbook with feelings. We have a playbook. It's called the federal law. That's the playbook. And so I love Louisiana. My amazing daughter and son-in-law and grandson are there, but my goodness, we do like to make things up as we go.
Yes, yes. I laughed when I saw that one because that is a playbook insane right now. I can't wait to get the playbook.
We want the secret copy. You guys email it to us.
Yes. Should a para be doing pullout for a student if the IEP says that the SPED teacher will be providing that service?
No, because they're not the SPED teacher. They're not the SPED teacher.
We've answered this, but I think you probably need to answer it again. Does state law trump federal law in regards to SPED paras?
Only federal. The only thing that applies for special education is the federal law. Literally, no state is allowed to reduce the benefit of IDEA. So all states, if you go on their state website, they will have a side-by-side comparison of state law and federal law. And usually there's a little bit of language change around maybe identification of SLDs or maybe some a little more language about behavior. But the federal law is a federal law. It doesn't change by states.
Perfect. Is there a limit on number of kids that a para can be alone in a room with and for how long?
I don't know why paras are alone with students. The instructional day is the instructional day. I mean, if we're at recess, if we're coming back inside from an assembly, but we hear this all the time that paras are left alone with students. And whatever students they are, there's no instruction happening because instruction, direct and initial instruction comes from who? Certified educators and certified special educators.
Can you give me some strategies on how to encourage a para to support a physically very involved student and work on their goals within the IEP that was approved and signed by parents?
So, the IEP is approved and signed by the entire IEP team. I don't know that I have a strategy for a para to work with a physically aggressive student. I would first reach out to my leadership and say, is this the appropriate setting? I don't want one person, para, or anybody else being in charge of a child that's physically aggressive. So if that's the current need, I would wonder if we're in the right setting. But that needs to be supported by your principal.
Okay. My school district hires paras as gen ed and SPED teachers. Sorry, That was a statement. Yeah.
Yes, they do. And we sit in I've been in meetings where they brought in attorneys, the special education director, HR, the superintendent. I don't care who you bring in. I don't care if you bring in Tom Brady. It's illegal. The fact that you do it and you know that you do it, it's illegal. And so when there's a state complaint, when there's a federal complaint, when there's a due process, guess who we're not calling to the stand? Superintendents, special education directors, HR. You know who we're calling to the stand? The people that work with the child. So don't let somebody else put your certification that you work so hard for, whether you're a para, an aide, a teacher, a special educator, a related or instructional service provider. Don't let your school district put your licensure that you work so hard for in play.
What's the difference between a paraprofessional and SPED paraprofessional?
It's made up. Yeah, I like that. Karen, these are SPED paras. Okay, they're paras, right? They can be used in different, there are paras that are used for transportation. There are paras that are used for kiddos that have health needs. There are paras that are used for behavior. But when we say in an IEP meeting, Karen, these are special education paras, we're trying to manipulate. And we've all been given the gift of persuasion. I don't like when we use it for manipulation. So let's just be clear. This is a paraprofessional, a level 1 or 2, 3 aide in your state, and they have duties, but they have limitations too.
Perfect. I'm going to ask this one because we do get this question a lot. What applies to private schools?
So private schools do not receive funding under IDEA. Private schools might receive other funding, but IDEA is for public schools for kids between the ages of 3 and 22 who receive special education and related services. So charter schools, public schools, those schools receive funding for special ed under IDEA. So I have kids in private schools, and while they try to do an educational plan, they have no obligation to fulfill the requirements under IDEA.
Okay. Does the parent need or should they attend the IEP meeting?
I would love that. I would love that. I think in 29 years, I've seen a para how many times? 0. I've never seen a paraprofessional at an IEP meeting. Most schools don't even want to give you the paraprofessional's name. They'll just give you an initial. So I'll say, who's the paraprofessional working with Billy in math? Mrs. C. I'm like, from Happy Days? Like, is it just CEE? And sometimes in the meeting, they don't even know that person's full name. It's unbelievable. But we have the right as parents to talk to anybody that's providing an educational product to our student.
Thank you. I am now the special education, but was the para for 13 years. I was left as a substitute to the previous teacher. Is that legal?
No, no. I call it the dump and run. It's so unfair to the paraprofessional and puts such amazing burden on them. Then it's not right.
Okay. Would a para be qualified to provide oral manipulation on a student for speech-related services?
If the paraprofessional is not a speech pathologist, they're not a speech pathologist.
Okay. With regards to para, is it a good model for intervention for a para to just be there for supervision and have a kiddo on a computer working without instruction?
I mean, a lot of things that are on a computer are supplements. That's probably another training for another day. We are so good at just sticking kids on a computer, aren't we? A computer is not specially designed instruction because you can't adjust it. While school districts they're heavily weighted in one-to-one. Everybody gets Chromebook, but a computer is not specially designed instruction. But there might be minutes that a student's on a computer and doesn't require the services of a special educator.
Are SOP assistants and OT assistants considered paraprofessionals?
Nope, they're related instructional service providers.
If the para is doing inclusion in the classroom and the SPED teacher is providing services in the pullout group, is that legal?
Is that supervised? If you're in different rooms, I can't supervise somebody in another room. I really can't. I can't. I can be their boss, but I can't supervise somebody in another room.
Do these laws apply to ECSC preschool classrooms?
So the laws apply to children that receive special education and related services under IDEA between the ages of 3 and 22. So yes.
What qualifies as a qualified teacher?
Highly qualified teacher. So the obligation and duties of personnel is listed under 34 CFR 300.156. 34 CFR 300.156. Those duties are listed there.
If one K-5 building has 2 special ed classes and only one special ed teacher that floats back and forth with paras in other rooms, is that allowed?
I mean, are you just like on a carpet? We're just floating like what? We can do. It wouldn't be hard to do better. Here's what I want to say. Can I just say this? We're not running low on football coaches. We're not running low on people at the admin building. We're not running low on principals and assistant principals. If we wanted to hire and staff these rooms, we would do that. How do I know that? Because when I have a violation that's open and substantiated by the state or federal government, guess what? Those rooms are staffed.
Right. Is a paraprofessional the same as a one-on-one?
A one-on-one could be any staff member from the school district that they choose. It's usually a paraprofessional.
Oh, I'm not sure about this one. Are paraprofessionals supposed to basically provide hygiene care for kindergarten students who are too scared to take care of themselves, but they don't feel comfortable providing those hygiene skills,
Yeah, that usually is a duty of the teacher, the special educator, and or the paraprofessional. So that wouldn't be unusual. So students might have a PCS, a personal care supplement, They might have hygiene or self-care IEP goals. So that would be the responsibility of whatever staff member to implement that.
Okay, perfect. I'm assuming this person is a para because it says, if I split minutes with my SPED teacher, is that okay?
If you're getting her paycheck, just ask her if she'll split her paycheck with you. See if she'll do that. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. No, we don't split minutes. We don't split children. We don't split services. The child is due a free, appropriate public education based upon the codified IEP that we sign and agreed upon.
What does the law state in regard to paraprofessional and student behavior management?
So student behavior management is an obligation of the principal to staff rooms appropriately and to make sure that when we're in IEP meetings that we have students in the right setting. So paraprofessionals are not in charge of making kids have less behaviors that impede their learning or learning of others.
Can paras who knowingly work under non-certified special educators be prosecuted or held accountable for denying SPED minutes?
So here's the thing: we don't really prosecute anybody. A parent can file a due process hearing for the school violating FAPE. Unfortunately, we don't have any checks and balances in play, and so. But what's unfortunate is when we do have a hearing, or we have a mediation or a state complaint or a federal complaint, those investigators are reaching out to the staff members and they will have to provide their logs, the support minutes, the data collection sheets, the raw data collection sheets. And it's just so sad that we are putting people in positions that we know are illegal. And when I say we, I mean leadership. Your principal knows what they're doing. Your special education director clearly knows what they're doing. This is not a surprise for anybody.
Perfect. Thank you. Does federal law apply to private schools the same way? We've
Nope.
already.
Private schools do not receive federal funding under IDEA.
What ages and grades are we talking about? Elementary, junior high, and high school? I just want to be clear.
Before and after that. So we're talking about 3-year-olds to the 22-year-old program. And some school districts in some states have kids in special education until they're 26. So students in a public school between the ages of 3 and 22, some states go up to 26. These obligations have to be met.
Okay. This one, they're asking for clarifications. If a para pushes into a gen ed classroom, for instance, science, and a SPED teacher checks in with the para minutes in gen ed setting would still be correct in the service page if the personnel training notes section states that's a SPED teacher communicated with the gen ed teacher and para X amount of time per week.
A paraprofessional may not provide any service to a student unless the paraprofessional is working under the direct supervision. Direct supervision. Checking in is not direct supervision. It's not. And so it again says under the act that when a paraprofessional works under the direct supervision of a teacher, the teacher prepares the lessons and plans the instruction. The paraprofessional works in close and frequent proximity with that teacher. The paraprofessional work in close and frequent proximity to the teacher. Direct supervision, close, frequent, I don't know how much clearer we can be, but what you're describing is what happens almost all days across the United States. We have a teacher checking in. That would be like a hospital aide delivering all nursing services in a hospital, and nurse checks in a couple of times a week. I think that would be problematic.
Are paras allowed to give accommodations such as small group testing, test read aloud?
Yeah, absolutely. They can implement accommodations. Accommodations can be implemented really by any staff member. They're allowable under a 504 or an IEP. An accommodation by itself is not specially designed instruction.
Okay. Can a paraprofessional collect data to support the need for a one-on-one aid in the absence of a teacher? We are in the middle of a 6-week data collection. There's currently only a substitute and the para in a self-contained classroom.
Is the substitute a certified special educator? I'm going to go ahead and guess. I'll go with, it rhymes with no. Yeah.
What about when teacher has a substitute and paras are not being supervised? Do the minutes count for service?
They have to be directly supervised and in close proximity to a certified special educator.
I think I'm seeing a trend here.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what we see every day. That's what all of our partners see. And school districts just have no problem saying it out loud in the meeting. What's paramount for all of you listening, especially if you're educators or parents, is you need to find out at the IEP table when you have a meeting who's delivering instruction. When I start out a meeting, before you even get to the present levels of academic achievement and functional performance, I say, okay, what happens when we get to school? We go through his schedule. Who teaches math, reading? And then I say, who is the second staff member? Who is the second staff member? And I think you'll be shocked to find out when you start going to meetings and asking those questions, because you have the full right under 200.59. Parents have rights to know. 200.61 says that you have the right to know who's instructing your children. And you'll be stunned at me when people go, I mean, I think there's somebody in there with him. I didn't write an IEP for somebody to be in there and with him. I wrote an IEP so that he can make progress in light of his unique circumstances.
Okay, admin have said that paras can be alone in classroom for up to 30 minutes without supervision when short-staffed. Is this true? Some admins send a teacher to check on the class every 30 minutes.
Yeah, I think if that was true, we could get a copy of it. So here's the thing. If it's the truth, I would just say, if that's true, please provide me a copy of that by close of business. You know how many of those copies I get by close of business? Because it's not a law, it's a practice. And practices are not legal in school districts. You know what's legal? Their obligations, the school board meeting requirements, statutes, regulations. But we have schools that are doing stuff and they've done it for years that it seems to be law to the people that work there.
Okay, here's an interesting one. If you are a para and there is no sped teacher or you have a long-term sub in position, what should you do?
You should reach out to the person that hired you and say, I'm very concerned that we are denying these students a free, appropriate public education. Can you tell me how we're going to fix that?
Perfect. Can paraprofessionals attend the IEP meeting?
Yeah, I mean, anybody could attend the IEP meeting. We would love paraprofessionals to come to the meeting, but I know why we don't have paraprofessionals come to the meeting. I really know, because they probably don't want me to ask questions. You know, I've been known to ask a few questions.
And are paras allowed to read the IEP evaluation?
They would need to read the student's folder so they would know their needs, their critical needs, their strengths, what they're making gains on, what we're working towards. Absolutely.
Okay, perfect. All right, I'm scrolling through. We have a lot of the we've already answered that one. As a one-on-one aid, does the rules change? I know that's not a specific para.
Rules don't change. And here's the good news. Special ed started December 2nd, 1975, when the great Gerald Ford begrudgingly signed into law and educating all handicapped children. And he agreed that we should educate all handicapped children. And that was the first time they were even allowed to come to public schools. In 1990, we reauthorized it and called it IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. Here's the good news about special ed. Once you actually learn the law, they haven't changed. The only thing that really changed in the 2004 reenactment was three things. One, we added extended school year services. Two, we added transition requirements. And three, we took out the language that talked about the severe discrepancy model to identify a student with SLDs. So when your school leadership says that's changed, they're not being honest. And sometimes people look you in your face and they're not honest.
Okay. Who can take data in our class? Can the EA, PPT, and FSC take it?
Yeah, I mean, anybody can take data. Always, data and a different purview is helpful for educating any child.
Can a paraprofessional be allowed to see student records to see what disability a child in classroom has?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Anybody that works at the school district has the right that has an educational need to access their cumulative folder has a right to do that.
Okay, so if a paraprofessional is providing in-class support as listed in the IEP service line, How does that count as direct supervision? How often does a certified special education be going to class directly supervise the paraprofessional?
So here's what you should know, dear. Paperwork and software is not under IDEA. So just because we put sped staff and we typed out paraprofessional doesn't override the law. So we've gotten really good at school districts to start changing stuff. There's a school district here in the great state of Texas. I won't tell you their name, but they won't take out the phrase sped staff. Sped staff is not even a position in Texas. But they say that because it is muddying and it's not clean. And instead of just saying, we're going to have a para and your student's never going to have special education. And that district has told me in a meeting, in many meetings, that there might be special ed students who never have a special educator meet with them for an entire IEP year. You got to be willing to ask hard questions to get to a conversation that properly serves a student. Because the longer we stay quiet, kids are penalized every day.
Are laws different in an inclusion preschool program at an elementary school for paras?
So the laws for paras are the laws for paras. They don't change anywhere in public school.
Can the special education para work with an identified student who does not have pullout minutes? The special education has never worked with this student.
So special education can be delivered in the classroom, pull out, self-contained class. So whatever their special ed minutes are, the para would need to have the direct supervision from a special educator or a certified teacher.
Are there different levels of paraprofessionals?
Yeah, in Texas, we have educational aids 1, educational aids 2, educational aids 3. That statute in Texas is, I feel like I should have these memorized. I just wake up thinking about statutes. Is that what you guys do? I want to say it's 230.61, the Texas Administration Code. Will talk about the roles of educational 1, educational 2, and educational 3. So you have federal law, IDEA, and then your state will have administration code, and those will have a little more specificity around that.
Okay, can you provide some guidance on differences between a para assigned solely to a single child versus a para that's assigned to an entire class?
So a paraprofessional that's assigned to an entire class. So we would assume that the entire class, if it's a general ed class with inclusion support, I would assume the paraprofessional is usually supporting 20 to 25% of the class. And it's going to be a stretch for that para to meet all of the minutes for every student. Again, we're not looking for perfection. We're looking for progress. And so if a para is assigned to a one-on-one, that is their sole obligation to meet. If they're assigned to a general ed class, let's say a biology class, and 8 of the kids have in-class support minutes, then they would be obligated to work in tandem with a special educator to provide those minutes daily.
I'm going to ask this one again because we get it a lot. If a teacher is out, can a para teach the class for the day?
No. I mean, they can be in the class and they can interact with the students, but paras aren't teachers. They're not. They're amazing staff members and support instructional service providers, but they're not certified teachers. Certified teachers are listed under 300.156 under IDEA. So 34 CFR 300.156.
Do paras handle 504s?
Do paras handle 504s? So a 504 is the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. And it solely says that if you are identified with a disability, you cannot be discriminated based on that disability and denied accommodations. I'd be surprised to see a para in a room delivering accommodations on a 504, but it could happen.
What is the difference of credential and competency for special education paraeducators versus paraeducator?
Oh no. We like to add words, don't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. With a teacher. We've got this one again. Is it okay for a para to teach reading if the teacher is in another room nearby?
Paras don't teach. They're support staff. So they're under the direct supervision. Direct supervision. So if I was watching your 8-year-old at my house you would assume that I would be giving him direct supervision, right? You would assume he wouldn't be, 5 Haslas down. So teachers teach. There's 2 kinds of teachers: special educators, special education teachers, and general education teachers. The other persons that can provide direct instruction are related and instructional service providers.
So this one says, so I'm assuming that a parent cannot legally provide specially designed instruction to a student who is homebound.
That would be correct.
Is the accommodation page just as good as seeing the IEP?
Oh, no. Well, that's only part of it. That's like saying, look, here's a steering wheel. Where's the rest of the car? It doesn't matter. It does matter. So the IEP is built upon robust present levels, which include evaluations, what's going on currently, any medical needs, parent concerns for enhancing the education of their child. We have appropriate annual IEP goals. We have needed accommodations. We have the least restrictive environment. We have the schedule of services. We have supplements. So if you don't see the whole document, you don't see the whole child.
Where can you find trainings paras should have?
So your school district is obligated to train all of their staff members that work with students. So your school district would have paraprofessional training for their school district, city, or county.
Does supervised by highly qualified teacher mean SPED highly qualified for SPED class and general education highly qualified for gen ed?
Yeah, both of those teachers are required to be highly qualified teachers. So if you're a certified teacher in your state or you're a certified special education teacher, you're supposed to be highly qualified.
Okay. We have a bunch of other questions, but they're not relevant to this topic, so we'll keep going. We will have the recording available. Can a para be alone with kids if they have a substitute certification?
A substitute certification doesn't make them a teacher.
Is there a limit of students a para can have?
I wish there was. There are some states, I know New Jersey has some guidance around self-contained classes and resource classes. Again, that is such a continuum, right? I might have a class of 10 kids who all had a deficit in reading, maybe dyslexia students, and I might have a class with 1 behavioral student who needs 2 certified adults to supervise him. So it would be hard to put guidelines because every student's disability is unique to them.
Thank you. And we have an individual who's going to email us the playbook. Thank you.
Do you guys want me to do a webinar? Give me an emoji if you want me to do a webinar on the playbook. Yes. I can't wait to see the playbook.
Look at all the emojis.
Maybe we can help them win the Super Bowl this year too. And the Saints, the playbook.
Look at all of them.
I like it, Picasso.
What is the best practice for para communication with parents?
So we would love for parents to be able to communicate with parents. And we find that stopped. But anybody that provides an educational product to your child should be allowed to communicate with parents.
What does small group as an accommodation look like with a paraprofessional?
So small group is quite the range. Some school districts would say a small group is 18 kids. I don't want a small group like that in my house, but it's just, the law is linear, but it's sometimes ambiguous. So we have to figure out what's an appropriate small group. We are excited that you guys are all on here. We hope that you walk around with the statutes from Every Student Succeeds Act, and No Child Left Behind, and the letter from October 4th, 2022 from OSEP, and the federal law for personnel qualifications 300.156 and 200.58 and 200.59. So we are so excited you guys are here. We want to train you. We want you to have the knowledge. We want you to be secure in what you're doing. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to us at advocate@specialeducationacademy.com. Of course, we always have our 2-day training and the mastermind. Remember, when we get it right for the child, we get it right for everybody. And we're going to keep working with families and school districts and advocates till we get it right for every single child. We love you guys, and we'll see you in the next training.
Hit subscribe, share this with a friend, And you know what? Meet me back here every single week. We're not just talking about change, we're making it. Because when you know better, you do better. And when we get it right for the child, we get it right for everybody.